What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue my 2023 schedule preview / projected records for the 2023 college football season. And we continue them with the Auburn Tigers. Here's a schedule last year for the Auburn Tigers. 5-7 record last year in 2022. And you look at who they played in the non-conference. They played Mercer, San Jose State, Penn State, and they also played Western Kentucky, so they didn't have too tough of a non-conference schedule last year. Of course, Penn State was one of their toughest non-conference games. They ended up losing that game there at home. They got blown out in that game. So, yeah, Auburn, we kind of knew after that game that they would kind of be a disappointing team. They played Missouri, and also they played Georgia out of the East. Of course, they played Georgia every year out of the East, and, that's kind of like a rival game or something like that. But they did end up defeating Missouri, but they got some quality wins in the SEC. Missouri, they beat them, and then they beat Texas A&M. But they really lost to a lot of tough teams on this schedule. The schedule was obviously tough last year, and I think that's why Auburn kind of went 5-7 as well. And Brian Harsin got fired. But a new era coming in for this Auburn team heading into 2023. Hugh Freeze coming in as the new head coach. What is this Auburn team going to look like with him in his first year? But let's look now at the 2023 schedule for this Auburn team. Here's the schedule for them heading into 2023. So you look at who Auburn will play out of the non-conference. They'll play UMass. They'll play Cal on the road. They get Cal out of the Pac-12, so that would be an interesting non-conference game there. And then they'll play Samford and then New Mexico State. So the schedule kind of similar to last year in the non-conference. They'll play one Division I team out of the non-conference, and that will be Cal there on the road, also known as California. That's an interesting non-conference game there on September the 9th. So that's who they get out of the non-conference. And you look at who Auburn will play outside of the SEC West. We know they're going to be playing every West team on this schedule. At the SEC West, they'll play Georgia at home this year. Of course, they play Georgia every year. That's kind of like their rival game or something like that. That will be at home this year. And then they'll play on the road at Vanderbilt. So I think, the draw out of the East is not too bad, but they still have to play Georgia, which is kind of brutal, and they still have to play every West team, so that kind of makes the schedule a little bit tougher for Auburn. But let's go game by game now for this Auburn team. So they'll kick off the season on September the 2nd with UMass. That should be an easy win there, and then they'll play Cal here on the road. And like I said, that's a really tough place to play. That's going to be a tough place to play against Cal. Cal wasn't that good last year, but this could be a really interesting game. The thing about it, though, both teams were not really good last year, so it could be a back-and-forth game. You never know. This will be a really tough non-conference game for Auburn. And then they'll play Samford after that, so they'll play 3 non-conference games to kick off the year in September, and then they'll play Texas A&M here on the road. A Texas A&M team that should really be better than they were last year. Both Auburn and Texas A&M weren't that good last year. They were the most disappointing teams in the SEC from last year. This should be a back-and-forth game. Texas A&M looking for revenge on this Auburn team. And then they'll play Georgia after that on September the 30th, so they'll play Georgia here. And after Texas A&M, that's kind of like a tough stretch there in the month of September. And then they'll get a bye week after playing that game. Then they'll play on the road at LSU. So it's a pretty good spot for a bye week. I'm not going to lie. It's a really good spot for a bye week. LSU going to be a little bit tougher this year. And this one is on the road. It's a rival game. You never know what can happen. But this will be a tough one here for Auburn. And then they'll play Ole Miss here at home on October the 21st. Then they'll play Mississippi State after that on October the 28th. Then they'll play back-to-back road games here with Vanderbilt and Arkansas on November the 4th and November the 11th. These are not tough back-to-back road games. I really don't think they're going to be tough back-to-back road games at all. Vanderbilt's obviously a team that, still has a long way to go. But it could be an interesting game. You never know about it. Vanderbilt could be a sneaky good team in the SEC this year. And then you got Arkansas here, another one of those sneaky teams in the SEC. But as of right now, these are back-to-back road games. I'm not going to say that they're tough back-to-back games, though. I think Arkansas will be their toughest road game probably in these back-to-backs perhaps. But then they'll play New Mexico State after that on November the 18th. And they'll end things out here with Alabama on November the 25th. And playing Alabama every year is brutal for Auburn. It's a rival game anyway because it's usually played every single year. So you got to play Alabama and Georgia at home. That's the thing about this schedule. You have to play LSU as well. But at least they get Georgia and Alabama at home. That's the good news. So, I mean, they have to play their toughest opponents there at home, but they have to play LSU on the road, which kind of makes the schedule a little bit tougher, and also play Texas A&M on the road as well. And then Cal here in the non-conference, that will make the schedule a little bit tougher. So this schedule kind of tough for Auburn heading into 2023. I don't think it's as bad as last year's, though. Let's go now to the projected record here for this Auburn team. And this is the scale I use for these projections. If it's a 1% game, those are games where Auburn has no chance of winning in. 20%, Auburn's going to be about a couple touchdowns of an underdog in the orange. 40% in the yellow, games where Auburn's going to be about a touchdown of an underdog. 50-50 games, these will stay in the white, games where they can go either way. 60% games in the purple, these are games where Auburn's going to be favored by a touchdown. 80% in the blue, these are games where Auburn's going to be favored by a couple touchdowns. And then the 90% games, these are games where Auburn's going to be favored by more than 3 touchdowns in the green. And we always start with the green games here, the easy wins for the Auburn Tigers here on this schedule. And that's the 3 non-conference games here. 3 out of those 4 non-conference games, and that's UMass, Samford, and New Mexico State. I think Auburn has no business to lose all 3 of these games. They should be big-time favorites in all 3 of these non-conference games. And these are cupcake games for Auburn, so I think they should take care of business in all 3 of these. And I think Auburn will be favored by more than 3 touchdowns in all 3 of these non-conference games. We go to the games now where Auburn's going to be favored by a couple touchdowns. And surprisingly, I don't have any blue games on this schedule, but I do have some purple games. So we'll skip over the blue games and we'll go to the purple games now. The 60% range, these are games where Auburn's going to be favored by a touchdown. And I think you got 3 of those on the schedule. It's Cal here on the road, Mississippi State at home, and then Vanderbilt on the road. Cal, I know they were not a good team last year, but this could be an interesting game. And plus, Auburn wasn't good last year. And like I said, this is just based off of where the teams were last year. But this will be an interesting non-conference game. I'm looking forward to this matchup. It could switch to a 50-50 game by the time we do our predictions in the month of May. Same thing with Vanderbilt, perhaps. But Vanderbilt, I still think, has a long way to go before they compete in the SEC. And I think Cal could be a better team than they were last year. We'll just have to see what their production looks like for them coming into 2023. That will be a tough non-conference game there. And then obviously Mississippi State, I think with home field advantage, they'll have the advantage here in this game. And that's why I got Auburn favored by a touchdown in this game as well. I think all 3 of these games you can favor Auburn at least by a touchdown in all 60% games here. So I think those are the games where Auburn's going to be favored in the green and the purple. All right, do I have any underdog games here for Auburn in the red or the orange or the yellow? I don't have any red games for Auburn, but I do have a 20% game on this schedule in the orange. And that's the Georgia game at home on September the 30th. I think this is the only game that Auburn will be about a couple touchdowns of an underdog. Obviously, Georgia winning the national championship last year will make it a little bit tougher for them. And like I said, Georgia is one of the best teams now in the country, it seems like. And this will be a tough game here for this Auburn team. At least it's a home game. If this game was on the road for Auburn, I probably would put it in the red. I'm going to stick with it and put it in the orange just because it's at home for them. So that makes it a little bit of a chance there. Maybe they have a chance in the first quarter to compete, but at the end of the day, Georgia's going to be the big-time favorite heading into this game. All right, we go to the games now in the yellow. Games where Auburn's going to be about a touchdown of an underdog. These are not basically 50-50 games, but these are games where Auburn could have a potential chance to knock off teams in. And I got 2 of those on the schedule with the yellow games. I got LSU on the road and Alabama at home. LSU's a rival game. You never know what can happen, but I have to put this one in the yellow just based off of where Auburn was last year and based off of where LSU was last year as well. And this is in Death Valley, so this will be a tough place to play for Auburn. But I'm expecting a pretty good game here between these 2 rivals, these 2 Tigers. And then Alabama at home. I think Auburn has a really good chance to beat Alabama this year. It could happen, you never know, but it's really too early to tell. Alabama, they've had some problems in the past with Auburn and everything. And also Alabama struggled on the road last year, so this could make it a very interesting game heading into 2023. But those are the only games I see Auburn being underdogs in. It's not really like, they're going to be underdogs in all of these games on the schedule. But the rest of the games here on the schedule in the white, Texas A&M on the road, Ole Miss at home, and then Arkansas on the road. I think these are all 50-50 games. I think these are games where they can go either way. Texas A&M and Auburn, both teams that were disappointing last year in the SEC, could make this one an interesting game. Ole Miss at home, I think that's the best chance they have. Ole Miss, obviously, Hugh Freeze used to be down there, so this could be a really interesting game. And then Arkansas on the road, going to be a really tough place to play, but I think this will still be a 50-50 game based off of where Arkansas was last year. They finished 7-6 last year, so that's why I got to put this one as a 50-50 game as well. So now let's get to the projection here for this Auburn team, the projected record, not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on this schedule for Auburn. So you look at the games that Auburn's favored in the green and the purple, and of course you count the underdog games with Georgia in the orange, and then you got LSU and Alabama in the yellow, and also the 50-50 games in the white. You get an overall projected record for this Auburn team in 2023. It comes out to be 6-6 for 2023. So 6-6, I think, is the mid-case scenario for this team. 5-7, I believe, would be their worst-case scenario. But usually 5-7 is usually when first-year head coaches finish in. And plus, Hugh Freeze coming in, I think it's going to take a little time for Auburn to compete in the SEC once again. And I think 6-6 is the overall, best case, or like the mid-case scenario. Best case scenario would be probably 7-5. I think, if Auburn goes 7-5, that would be a pretty good first year under Hugh Freeze. But I'm going to go with 6-6 here as of right now. I think the schedule is a little bit tough for me because I can't put them at 7-5 or 8-4. I think the schedule kind of sets up where it's really tough, and I can't really put it as an 8-4 type Auburn team. But that's my overall projected record for this Auburn team. Let me guys know what you think about this Auburn team. What do you think their worst case scenario would be? What do you think their best case scenario would be in 2023? Let me go down in the comments below. Stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.